Ladies and gentlemen, James Lane here, and today may be a very interesting day. You see, there's a memo that got out, leaked out, was put out, however it got out. It is from the White House, and what does it talk about? It talks about the Pence Card. That's right. Today, December 23rd, the Vice President, Mike Pence, may do something entirely unexpected that puts the ball completely, entirely, and unequivocally back in President Trump's court. You're going to want to know what the heck is going on, so stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, James Lane here, and this absolutely stunning and shocking article came out last night on the National File, ladies and gentlemen, and it's called Exclusive. White House Memo Details How Pence Card Can Save Trump's Presidency Today, December 23rd. This is the real deal, folks. I've looked it up. Tom Pappert here, who wrote this last night, he isn't blowing smoke up your rear end, and I'm going to tell you why. But first, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to subscribe. I need you to hit the notification bell if you're on YouTube, if you're on Rumble, if you're watching. Do that for me if you haven't already. Now, if you've already done that, do me a favor, leave a comment and share, ladies and gentlemen. We are cut off from normal distribution and we get around by word of mouth. The Patriots are waking up, but we need to wake them up faster. So the more you share, the more Patriots hear the message and join the American Reveille movement. Ladies and gentlemen, we need all the help we can get right now. And speaking of help, I need your help. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, do me a favor. Give me a 5-star rating if you love what we do. And if you really love what we do, take an extra minute for me, folks, and type in a review. It can be a sentence. It can be a paragraph, whatever you honestly feel about this show. Because, folks, the more of those reviews we get, the more Apple moves us up the rankings and the more Patriots get to hear our message. All of our growth, all of this great success that we've been experiencing so far, ladies and gentlemen, it's all from you. It's all from you. This is a grassroots movement. We have no giant corporate sponsors. Any money that goes into it is getting paid for by my day job. Folks, I've received some wonderful donations from you guys and I appreciate it, but that's all being saved up because I need a new computer so that I can actually multitask things for this operation and get these videos out faster. That's what I'm doing with that. So, folks, thank you so much. And let's get to this article and we're going to go through it. And I'm going to also read the exact memo to you and break it down. And then we're going to talk about it at the end. So let's do this, folks. Tom Pappert, exclusive White House memo details how Pence Card can save Trump's presidency December 23rd. This is a White House memo that details how Vice President Mike Pence is legally required to reject electoral college votes from contested states. This is going to get hot and heavy, folks. Hot and heavy. Look at that color guard right there. Look at that. Look at these determined individuals. They're going to save our country, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, they're going to do it not alone, but with the help of the Patriots, with the help of the people, with the help of us, the digital soldiers, ladies and gentlemen, the people that are holding the line, holding the fort down, and pressing against the left. You and I, and we are about to start reading. Folks, sources in the Trump administration have confirmed to the National File that President Donald Trump's most vocal advocates within the White House have determined that both U.S. Code and the Constitution contain language that requires Vice President Mike Pence to reject unlawful electoral college certificates. But Pence must act by no later than Wednesday, December 23rd. That's today, folks. I think we're going to have a Christmas present. I could be wrong, but I think we are going to have a Christmas present. Why would Vice President Pence have this power? If you're not very familiar with how things are set up and operated, remember, the president of the Senate is the vice president of the United States. That's just how that works, ladies and gentlemen. He breaks the tie if there's a tie-breaking vote, and he makes the decisions in certain instances when he has to. Let's keep reading. The drafters of this White House memo believe that the federal check to the state's elections reside with Vice President Mike Pence in his role as president of the Senate. Just said that. Additionally, Pence has the sole power to determine whether to reject impermissible states or electors. However, Pence is legally required to do this on the fourth Wednesday in December, which this year falls upon December 23rd. National Files sources in the White House indicated that the memo was requested by those in the president's inner circle who are most keen to see the 2020 election and the ensuing fallout administered in a transparent, as transparent a manner as possible. They also indicate that the push to find a path to verify the 2020 election's integrity is not coming solely from the White House, but also from across numerous agencies in the administration. Remember, we talked a couple days ago about how something big is happening behind the scenes. This is just a part of it. All right. This is just one method, one way, one thing that we're doing. This is a multifaceted plan with multiple means and avenues of attack and multiple types of attack happening all at once. The left and the world has no idea what's about to hit them, ladies and gentlemen. That's at least my belief. That's my belief from studying all the information and putting two and two together. Not like a conspiracy theorist. As Steve Bannon says, there is no conspiracy. There is no coincidence. That's what Steve Bannon says. But what I say is that I'm a facts guy, plain and simple. I look at the facts. I look at the data. I use my skill set, and I make a decision. I take a hard line stance in many different places. That's something very different than what you're used to if you're listening to some of the other mainstream folks out there who are protecting certain aspects of their organization. But I, my friends, I like to take a stand. I am a fighter. So that's just how I roll. Folks, let's keep reading. The emergence of the memo could mark a decided shift in roles for Pence, our sources explain. Since the days immediately following the election, Pence has remained relatively silent compared to President Trump and his legal team. The revelation that Pence alone can reject allegedly fraudulent electoral college certificates shifts from the spotlight. It takes the spotlight out from President Trump and congressional leaders significantly by putting President Trump's electoral destiny squarely on Pence's shoulders. This is a big deal, ladies and gentlemen, a very big deal. You see, it's quite possible that all this noise could have been made so that nobody paid attention to Mike Pence. Why would anybody pay attention to the vice president? I mean, the vice president usually doesn't have a lot of power. A lot of people say it's a mostly symbolic position, but I think Vice President Pence may go down as one of the most historic, if not the most historic vice president in history. And something like this would build a huge bridge of loyalty between him and Trump supporters. And I don't know about you, but after Trump finishes his term in 2024, if Pence was the man that saved the day, I'm sure my vote and yours would go with Vice President Pence. Ladies and gentlemen, let's keep reading. This memo will likely interfere with Pence's travel plans, as the vice president recently announced his intention to travel to Israel for 2 weeks after January 6th, when he will preside over a joint session of Congress, according to the Times of Israel. So what's inside the memo? Pence can deny electoral college certificates from states that have shown to have widespread election fraud. Now, instead of reading these little snippets here from the memo and from the memo down here and down there, this says Pence must notify the Secretary of State in each contested state that they have until January 6th. This is not an option for Pence if he intends to follow the law. From December 23rd until January 6th, he must instruct these states to remedy their electoral college certificates. We read above that has to happen today. It has to happen today, but this was requested by the White House, folks. This was drafted out. All right, folks. Now, I'm not reading this for a reason because I'm actually going to go through the the entire memo here in a second. But what I want to do first is finish this up. Let's keep reading. The drafters of the memo also tell National File that assuming the 6 contested states, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Nevada, assuming they don't remedy their electoral college certificates by either selecting them in the legislature or holding another election, President Trump will prevail in the electoral college, as there will no longer be 538 possible electoral votes, with several states having disqualified themselves by refusing to comply. So President Trump will have accrued 232 electors to Joe Biden's 227. This is a big deal. Now, in my last video, I told you how we could end up in a 269 to 269 position. This puts us in a 232 to 227 position, which may be thrown out or may be counted. This kind of brings us to uncharted territory in a lot of ways, but it's not something that's impossible, and it's not something that couldn't happen. Folks, again, I'll stress this like I stress in many other videos. This has been a historic year, an epic year, a year not measurable by many decades worth of years previous. Nobody alive has witnessed anything like this. Nobody at all. So, folks, I'm not expecting typical results from an atypical year. That would just be silly. So for all the naysayers out there expecting doom and gloom, sit on your toadstool and mope with the frogs, because I am running towards the finish line with President Donald J. Trump. Really quick, I just wanted to point out something else to you guys, because I probably won't be doing a video on it. But when I saw the bill earlier for that $600 stimulus, I know it's a little off topic, with all the other crap that's packed into it, like gender studies or gender reassignment, whatever the hell it's funding, it's $1 bazillion for gender stuff in Pakistan. We don't take care of our own people, but we like to study the possibilities of the sexual organs of Pakistanis. That's important. Folks, we have our priorities screwed up. But I said earlier, I said Trump's best strategy, Trump's only strategy. I said it in a post. I also said to some personal people, a little extra, some people I know, I told them that Trump needs to explain this to the people. It might be in a post. It might be in another video, something like that. If I have it on record, I have it on record. If I don't, I don't. You can believe what you want. But I told people that Trump needs to explain every little bit of what's going on with this 5,000-page bill. Then he needs to threaten to veto it or veto it himself. I put it in a post. He needs to veto the bill and exclaim to them that it'll be on their heads, and he'll sign either a redone bill or standalone bill for $2,000 a person. I said that 12 hours before Trump came out with his video. So go back at The James Lane on Parler, at The James Lane. You can find me on Parler. Scroll through my posts and you will find that post. And you can see that I am in Trump's head as best as I can be, as the humble strategist that I am. I will do the best I can, but I haven't steered you wrong thus far. I've been wrong here and there in little ways, but the main gist of what I've been telling you, I have been right every time. And I want to make sure that I get this information out to you, to me, to we the patriots, we the people, we the Americans, all right? This American last strategy from the left is not going to work. All right, so we need to keep rolling forward. America first, Americans first. Take care of our own before we look outward. It's been a very long time since we've done that, and Trump has brought us back to that glory, ladies and gentlemen, and we need to continue forward and support our president. All right, folks, so let's get to this memo. All right, that's really what I want to do here. I want to read through this memo and really get you to understand. So they requested from experts, from lawyers, from constitutional scholars, they requested a memo be drafted up for Mike Pence, just in case he had to use it. Now, we didn't find out about this, like I said, till late last night. This is when we found out about this. Look, December 22nd. It's dated last night. Mike Pence might be making a big move. He might be. Or this could be a scare tactic. This could be diversionary for the left. We don't know. But we're going to have huge news tomorrow between all the states, at least Arizona, that most likely will vote to decertify the election for Biden and recertify for Trump. We know Wisconsin's folding. We know Georgia's folding. It's only a matter of time, possibly, before even Michigan. We might get multiple whammies tomorrow, including the Pence card, folks. Washington, D.C., we're reading now for those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, Alexa, wherever you're listening. Washington, D.C., December 22nd, 2020. Memorandum for the President. Subject, Operation Pence Card, December 23rd. Background, U.S. Constitution and U.S. Code prohibit Vice President Michael R. Pence from receiving electoral votes from 6 fraudulently certified states. You see that? On December 23rd, the Vice President will notify each Secretary of State which certified for Biden where the fraud occurred that he hasn't received any certificates of legally appointed electors or their votes because of the fraud. By the way, speaking of fraud, speaking of secretaries of state, Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State of Georgia, the one we all love oh so very much. You know, with all of this Chinese communism floating around, it's really interesting to find out that Ron Raffensperger, Brad Raffensperger's brother, I'm probably screwing up his name, but I don't care. I'm on a roll, baby. Brad Raffensperger's brother, Ronnie boy, Ron Raffensperger. He is a high-ranking employee for Huawei. You know, that good old communist infiltrated company, the cellular company out of China. No bueno, folks. No bueno. Let's keep reading. All right. The Vice President further requests that the secretaries of those states and the relevant district judge send the certificates of legally appointed electors and their votes based upon non-fraudulent elections that did not violate laws passed by the state's legislatures to him before January 6th, 2021. And it lists the constitutional reasons why. Since all state legislatures essentially require, in some form or fashion, that their electors be appointed by honest and non-fraudulent elections, the Senate president will not have received any certificates of permissible votes from appointed electors as required by the Constitution in the manner directed by the legislature in those states. Analysis. Why the president of the Senate can't receive these legally insufficient state electors. And what this is saying, if you need me to translate at this point, is that because the fraud is so extensive, all right? Now, YouTube, fact checkers, whatever, if you're watching this, don't take this video down. I am reading a document from a news site. I am explaining news to our fans, all right? All right, YouTube, if you take this off, it's literally censorship because all I'm doing is deciphering a document, reading it, and explaining it to the patriots. So don't pull this off. All right, guys, what this is saying is that because of all the evidence of irregularities, let's be careful with our words, I guess, for 2 seconds, because of the evidence of all the irregularities and frogs. Sure, that rhymes kind of with fraud. Oh, God, I said it again. Anyway, look, what it means is that there's so much overwhelming evidence that the president of the Senate, the vice president, he can't legally take those votes. He can't legally allow them to be certified. It's his duty as per the Constitution not to, and there is a way for him to do this, to where he can throw those votes out and send it back to the legislature and force them to either hold a new election or choose the electors themselves. This is a very big deal, ladies and gentlemen, a very big deal. So we're going to go through this analysis. Article 2, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution requires that each state shall appoint in such a manner the legislature thereof may direct, or as the legislator thereof may direct, a number of electors. So each state shall appoint through the legislature the electors. Therefore, the papers or slates the states attempted to submit to the President of the Senate and the Archivist of the United States, they're not legal. They're not permissible certificates of the votes or lists of the electors as recited in Title 3, Section 9, 11. Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin violated the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2, and the 14th Amendment, Section 1, Equal Protection Clause in administering their elections, therefore rendering their slates inadmissible. This is no joke. This isn't playing. This is constitutional law. If the states don't react properly to this, the states themselves are acting in sedition. The states themselves are acting in treason. They must comply. Though I'm sure if this does happen tomorrow, the blue states will take this to the courts, and the Supreme Court will probably hear it. And you know what? That'll cause all kinds of problems, because then the right, we're going to say, why the hell wouldn't you listen to us? And why the hell are you listening to them? Why, John Roberts? Why? Why Supreme Court? Why SCOTUS? Why are they special and why are we shit? That pisses me off, and it should piss you off too, ladies and gentlemen. On December 14th, the states consummated a fraudulent and constitutionally deficient certification of their electors as required by 3 U.S.C. 7. State and federal authorities have discovered overwhelming evidence of election fraud and irregularities since November 4th, likely rising to the level of criminal election fraud. Criminal election fraud and public corruption. Civil courts dismissed these claims procedurally rather than on any substance. Ladies and gentlemen, remember, Bill Barr is gone tomorrow, and the new acting attorney general may just do something about this criminal fraud. He certainly has a history of looking into that type of stuff. Look him up. The president of the Senate, as the vice president, statutorily sits on the National Security Council and is privy to information no other individual in the presidential electoral process. Listen to this statement, ladies and gentlemen. This is the biggest statement here, one of the biggest statements here. The vice president, as the president of the Senate, he sits on the National Security Council. He's privy. He is given. He has the right to. He hears all of the information that no other individuals in the presidential electoral process have. The states... All right, the states don't have this information. The SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, they don't have this information. The U.S. Congress doesn't have this information. It's written in here. This specifically includes any classified evidence and assessments which emanate from Executive Order 13848. There it is, regarding foreign interference with U.S. elections. Therefore, the president of the Senate is uniquely qualified to issue a judgment on impermissible electors. This is going to be huge. Huge today, ladies and gentlemen. If this comes to pass, which I am 99% sure that it will, I could be wrong. You know, I make hard calls. I'm wrong once in a while, but I'm pretty damn sure that this is legit. This is legit. This is laying the smack down. Trump is the type of person that likes to give offensive Christmas presents. Can we tag that? Can that become a thing? Can we make a whole brand of those? Offensive Christmas presents. Don't know what to get your spouse? Get her an offensive Christmas present this year. She can look at it, give you one look, and then beat you to death with it. I don't know what an offensive Christmas present is. All I'm saying is Trump's the type of guy that if he's going to stick a knife in you, you're not going to see it till it's too late. And then it's going to start just twisting. He's going to punish them. And this is... what a hell of a card up his sleeve. I mean, geez, the Pence card. Did anyone see that coming? I didn't. I see a lot of things coming. I see a lot more things coming than most people see, and I didn't see this coming. Lastly, we're reading again, folks. The vice president has access to federal information related to pending federal criminal investigations in progress at the Department of Justice. Come on. each election district officer, FBI field office, U.S. Attorney's Office, USPS Postmaster, USPS Inspector General of the 6 states and 8 cities in contest. The information that Pence has gives him the right and the duty, ladies and gentlemen. This is huge. I hope you have a big smile on your face, because I do. Judgment in bold, ladies and gentlemen. Section E, judgment. All of these factors above inform and contribute to the vice president's analysis in deciding that he, as the representative of the federal seat of government, did not receive a constitutionally permissible slate of electors. And for that reason, he's not only duty-bound to request that the state send certificates and lists as required, by Title III U.S.C. Sections 9 and 11 from electors that were appointed in the manner that the state legislatures directed as soon as possible, but he is also the sole plenary power that has the authority to make this decision. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Mike Pence has the power. He is the one. He is the one for this job, according to this memo. We'll see. We'll definitely see. But man, oh man, today, December 23rd, is going to be a hell of a day. Here's the sample letter. We're going to read this, and this is great. This is what he would have to send out to the Secretary of States and all those folks. Dear Sir, Madam, pursuant to the requirements, bound by the requirements of Title III U.S.C. Section 12, I hereby request that you send the certificate and list lodged with you by the electors of your state and transmit the same by registered mail to the President of the Senate at the seat of government. The papers received by the President of the Senate and the Archivist of the United States are not certificates of votes and lists by electors as recited in Title III U.S.C. Sections 9 and 11, since Article 2, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution requires that each state shall appoint in such a manner as the legislator thereof may direct the electors. Ladies and gentlemen, here's all the constitutional crap that they broke. The electors of your state were not appointed in the manner that the insert state, for example, Nevada, legislature, the state legislator of that state, directed, because the manner in which your state's election was administered were marred with violations of laws passed by your respective state's legislature that included fraud, public corruption, foreign influence, and manipulation of the electoral process as detailed in Exhibit A. So what is Exhibit A, ladies and gentlemen? Note, Exhibit A includes evidence, documents, memos showing how your state constitution and the election statutes were violated, and additionally are included copies of pending litigation and other pending administrative actions and audits that will even further vitiate the results of your election. Ladies and gentlemen, I forgot what vitiate or vitiate means. I want to look that up real quick just so we're not all confused. V-I-T-I-A-T-E. Let's do that real quick. To reduce the value or quality of, to corrupt. Oh, that's a great word. Vitiate. That's how it's pronounced. Vitiate. All right, to even further vitiate the results of your election, to even further corrupt your election, even further than you've already dropped it into Hades, even further than you've already corrupted, besmirched it, made it look like an absolute garbage sham election process, you know, like the kinds they do in Venezuela and other countries of enemy origin, basically. These are not our friends, ladies and gentlemen. The citizens of these countries are, but not the countries in general. They aim to bring down our not democracy. I had to stop myself there. It's so easy to say that. They aim to bring down our democratic republic. All right? Our republic. We're not a democracy. Remember that, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want anyone to get confused. Let's get back to this before I go too far down the rabbit hole. We're almost done. The federal executive branch will provide further evidence of election fraud and irregularities to your state as it's obtained. We're not just going to send you all of this crap. We're going to keep sending you crap until you get it, until you get the point and you do your damn jobs. Kindly send the certificates and lists as required by Title III U.S.C. Sections 9 and 11 from electors that were appointed in the manner that your state legislature directed as soon as possible and before January 6, 2021 at 1 p.m. Eastern Time in the manner prescribed by Title III U.S.C. And this is the best part, ladies and gentlemen. This is a big middle finger, not to you, but this is to the illegal parties there. When they say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, it's right there, guys. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Signed, Michael R. Pence, Vice President of the United States, President of the Senate and the United States, presiding officer over the joint session of Congress on January 26, what the hell am I saying? January 6th. 2021. My words are getting jumbled reading all of this stuff. This is the full draft memo, ladies and gentlemen. This is a big deal. All right. He requested this. This has been requested. All right. That means that they're looking to do something with it. This is how you operate when you're at a high level. You have people draft these things for you. If the president and the vice president drafted all their own stuff, they'd never have a moment to even go to the bathroom and take a leak. Trust me. There's a lot of crap they have to do. All right. We're going to read right here. National File first covered Pence's responsibility to act lawfully on December 23rd. Thus far, National File has not been able to locate a relevant public comment from Pence or his surrogates. This has most likely been kept in secret if it is going to happen at all. But like I said, I believe it's going to happen. And this is a big deal, folks. Tomorrow, you're going to hear the word coup. You're going to hear the word coup. Tomorrow, I mean, you better brace yourself. They're going to freak out. If even half of what the stuff we went through in videos today, the decertification in Arizona, eventual decertification in Georgia, in Wisconsin, the reallocating those electoral votes to President Trump, the Pence Card, if this happens, heads are going to freaking explode. And man, we're going to have some great material for memes. I'll tell you that. But you're about to possibly watch the beginning of the end. And I mean, it's already been in the end for them, but the visible cracking of the Democrat Party and their puppet for China. Plain and simple. I needed to get this info to you folks as fast as I could. I wanted you to see it. I think it's very, very important that you understand it, regardless of if it happens or not. You need to see this. You need to know that something is coming. You hear that, folks? Sounds like thunder to me. I think there's a storm coming this way. Folks, I really appreciate you hanging out with me. Remember, like I said earlier in this video, please subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. Please give me a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Please give me a review if you have the time. And please, please, please share, comment, and then share again. All right. Tell your hamster, tell your ferret, tell a lobster. If you got a pet lobster, tell your lobster about the American Reveille. I don't know why I'm saying that, but what I do need to say is that you need to spread this around. The Patriots have to know what is going on. And I aim to give you the best possible, most entertaining and real source of information that I can possibly give you. All right, folks, do me a favor. If you really appreciate what you're doing or what I'm doing, I appreciate what you're doing, ladies and gentlemen. But if you appreciate what I'm doing, head over to AmericanReveille.com. If you've got a spare moment and you've got some spare change, head over to the donate tab. It's right here. You can hit donate and give me $1, $5, $10. None of it goes in my pocket. None of it. I haven't spent a dime of what's been donated because that's going to be reinvested into our small organization here so we can keep making it a larger organization. The first thing on the list is a new computer so that we can get these videos, these publications, these articles out quicker to you. You can also give me Bitcoin if you're into that. I got this thing right here. You can scan this QR code, copy this thing. If you're into Bitcoin, I'll take some Bitcoin too. But remember, like I've said in every video that I've plugged this donation crap, that's not the end all be all. I appreciate it. I need it. And I really, really am overwhelmed by the support and the help and everything that the Patriots are doing for small businesses. But All I need from you is to just remember that I've been censored. Remember that my distribution's cut. And when you get a moment, share this, talk about this, spread this. Without you guys, the American Reveille would be nothing. This is a grassroots movement. I don't have the money. I work a day job, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a student. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a veteran. I don't make a lot. And I put whatever extra I can into this. I don't have a corporate sponsor. I don't have big money, wealthy Republicans pouring money into this. It's just me and you. We're in this together, ladies and gentlemen. So I depend on you to spread the word about the American Reveille. So please, it's all word of mouth, all word of mouth. Tell your friends, tell your family, get the American Reveille movement in motion in your area. The more people we wake up, remember, Reveille, it means it's a wake up call. That's early morning in the military. Reveille. We are waking up the American people, and they are joining our ranks by the 1,000. Folks, the left stands no chance. We've got this in the bag. Stay tuned for more coming today, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.